Hello, friends. Welcome to Momentum Boost. I'm your host, the dancing Adrienne Gold Davis, and I am delighted that you're joining us today. So here's the important news right now. This coming Sunday, we're thrilled. We're hosting Action Con. That's Momentum's virtual conference, and it starts at noon on Sunday, December the 6th through 8th. From 12 till 2 p.m. Eastern Time each day, we're going to be unmasking our superpowers in order to mend the world. And during these incredible 3 days, you can expect to re-energize your soul, your spirit. We're bringing you celebrity keynotes, including actor Mayim Bialik and Survivor winner Ethan Zone, and so many more. There's going to be empowering talks with the top Jewish educators. There's intimate coaching sessions. There's motivating breakouts, and they're so important. And there's some of the world's most impactful organizations are facilitating them. We're having mood boosting workouts. There's just so much. So just click the link in the chat and register now. It's just $36 for all 3 days. And the first day of all 3 days is free. And we're at almost 700 women have registered already. So what's your problem? Click the link. Okay. Now today, to ask our guest a question, you just type it into the Q&A box or into the chat box on the right. But today on The Boost, we are talking tahini with Soom Foods CEO and co-founder Amy Zitelman, a tahini expert. And she also happens to be the daughter of our past president of Momentum, the wonderful, beloved Cindy Zitelman. Cindy, you did good. Your girl's a star. Okay, Amy is joining us for an incredible cooking demonstration just in time. It's going to guide us in baking tahini sugar cookies, which are so perfect for Hanukkah or any other day of the year, and also how to make an herbed tahini sauce, which I imagine would be perfect for dipping challah in, or perhaps just drinking it out of the container if you're me. Anyway, she's going to share the versatility of our favorite Israeli sesame paste. Amy Zitelman is also the author of the Tahini Table, Go Beyond Hummus, with 100 recipes for every meal. The book rocks. Welcome, Amy Zitelman.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yay.
Excited to be here. Hi, Mom, if you're watching. How fun for me. So for those of you not familiar with tahini, tahini is an ingredient made from 100% roasted and pressed sesame seeds. And it's probably most familiar in the American market and definitely used the most in Israel because of its application in hummus. So what we're going to be making today is an almost traditional lemon tahini sauce, which is the perfect base for blending with chickpeas to make your own hummus. But what we're going to be doing is adding in some fresh herbs there. Actually, I cooked my herbs a little bit on olive oil, which is a great trick to bring out even extra flavor, and whisking that all together. And exactly like you said, Adrienne, it is the most delicious dip for your challah. You can dip any veggies, potatoes, proteins, whatever you're having for Shabbat dinner tonight, or even your eggs for breakfast tomorrow. And it's one of my favorite sauces to have at home. So the first thing that we're going to do is mince some garlic with sea salt. And that's a little trick for those of you that's are like, what is mincing garlic? That's a great way to get the garlic into the smallest amount of slivers without using a garlic mincer. I find garlic mincers very annoying to clean and end up getting super smelly. And you can ask my mom or anybody else on the call that knows me that I'm trying to go for the path of least resistance. I'm definitely not trying to clean more than I have to since I have a 2-year-old at home. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your garlic and you're going to cut it into long slivers, and then very naturally just work it around and take your large knife and chop it up as small as you can. Now, if you don't have a large knife like this, one of the tricks is you can always bring your cutting board to the edge of your counter so that your hand has room under it for, just to get that rocking motion. But what is going to help here in getting it super small is a pinch of sea salt. So I always keep sea salt around. That grabs the knife and also grabs the garlic and makes it even easier to chop into smaller pieces. So as soon as I get these chopped, I'm going to drop them into the citrus. Citrus, garlic are probably the most ubiquitous flavor profiles. When it comes to tahini, you might have had a lemon tahini sauce on falafel if you've been on the trip to Israel, or even on your sabich, which is personally my favorite sandwich out of the country. And we're going to let these flavors just kind of meld together. So we have 4 tablespoons or a 1/4 cup of citrus here. Now, most commonly that citrus is going to be lemon, but in our cookbook in the Tahini Table, We use orange for a really sweet and subtle citrus flavor, and also sometimes lime. So this herbed tahini sauce calls for half lime, 2 tablespoons of lime, and half lemon. You might think, what's the difference? But I encourage you to try it, because once you get them together, you'll realize it has a really subtle differentiation than just using lemon. So while those are soaking together, here's the combination for tahini and water. Now, growing up, we actually didn't cook a lot with tahini at home. It was because my middle sister, Jackie, moved to Israel after graduating high school and spending some time in Israel on a GAP program before college, where she ultimately met her now husband, Omri. Omri has been in the tahina, or as we call it here, tahini industry in Israel at this point for almost 20 years. And when he introduced a high quality tahini, and those of you that have tasted it, the versatility of tahini in Israel, we were so inspired, but also so confused, because you really couldn't find good tahini available in the States. So that was back in 2011. We did many years of market research. The most important thing being that a high quality tahini comes from a very special sesame seed from Ethiopia called white hummus sesame. And that was being produced in Israel and not available here. So fast forward to 2013, we decided to start our own business called Soom Foods. And we've been selling tahini and talking tahini ever since. Now, you can just combine tahini and water in any ratio or combination. The more water you have, the thinner it gets, kind of like a salad dressing or thinner sauce. The less water you give, the thicker it is, almost a dip, ubiquitous or similar to hummus. The perfect ratio that we found in developing these recipes is 1 cup of tahini to 3/4 cup of cold water. So you'll see on a good tahini that it comes out of the jar no problem. When we were doing our research and trying to see what tahini was available in the States almost 10 years ago at this point, the problem was always that tahini had a huge slick of oil on top and was practically like chalk at the bottom. Now that will happen, that kind of separation will happen with any natural nut butter or seed butter. But the important thing is that it's able to be re-immersed, re-blended. And we love the white hummus seed and Soom tahini because you can very easily push a fork down to the bottom of the jar, scrape up anything that might have gotten settled or too hard down there, and bring it up and mix it right back together with the rest of the tahini to create a really pourable, stirrable tahini there. So we've got the 1 cup of tahini and 3/4 cup of cold water. Now this is what you're going to start seeing, which is at first when you start blending it, you'll notice that it gets super clumpy and almost you don't think that it's supposed to melt, that to really melt together. And that's because oil and water doesn't typically mix. But as you break up the tahini and keep incorporating those liquids, the water and the citrus that we're going to be putting in there, you'll see it's going to turn into a really light, really beautiful tahini sauce. So at first it gets super thick. That's just with the water in. Then we're going to combine it with our minced garlic and citrus sauce. And we're going to blend that together as well. So this is just something that I love to have around. Like I was saying, I'm always looking for something to dip my challah in. I'm a bread girl myself, and having these sauces is a great alternative to maybe some of the dairy salad dressings that you keep at home, or even mayonnaise-based dressings that you might, or dips that you like to do. The beautiful thing about tahini or sesame seeds in general is that they have an amazing source of protein, calcium, and iron. They're rich in healthy fats. It's a great source of magnesium and phosphorus. I mean, the health benefits really are unlimited. Sesame has been coveted across many cultures for millennia, and it's very apparent that it has all of these, medicinal purposes, that cultures have been incorporating sesame into their cuisine for thousands and thousands of years. Leave it to the States, of course, to only use sesame on burger buns or sushi rolls, but we're excited to make tahini a more popular ingredient in the American market so that people can get those health benefits in there. So the little bit of seasoning that we're going to do, which is something you find throughout the tahini table in many recipes, is just 1 teaspoon of cumin. So we'll blend that together and then go back for your herbs. Now, if you decide that you want to make a tahini sauce in a Cuisinart, that's totally an option. You can also use fresh herbs here, like I was saying, instead of cooking them over olive oil on low heat for a few minutes. I really love to cook it and to release those flavors in order to just kind of bring out a deeper herbal flavor. as we're making this herb tahini sauce. So this is just a mixture of parsley and cilantro. It's what I had in my fridge today. I also love incorporating dill or basil if you have those at home as well. This makes it, you might even see a recipe like this, a similar recipe to this, like a green tahini sauce called a green tahini sauce. That's also an option. So here you see that it's just very lightly mixed. The herbs are incorporated. The garlic and lemon are going to keep soaking as we let this sit and move on to our cookies. So this is probably the most familiar combination, right? Tahini with some lemon juice and garlic. One of our favorite ways to use tahini, and one of the ways that we were inspired actually by Omri's family, is in its sweet application, is in baking with it. So tahini, if you think about it as a fat, as a substitute for nut butters or even oil and butter and baked goods, you can use it in a plethora of recipes, cookies, and cakes. In fact, one of the stories that really got us most inspired to start Soom Foods is that when our family met Omri's family, you know, the meaning of the machatanam, Omri's mom made a carrot cake. It was so delicious, and carrot cake is actually one of our mom's favorite kinds of cakes. And that carrot cake, when we asked her the recipe, she said she subbed out much of the vegetable oil for tahini. And that really got us excited because we recognize that with the trends in the United States, things like eating healthier, paleo, you know, being more mindful of what we put in our bodies, that if tahini can go in a carrot cake, tahini can probably go in anything. And that's definitely the case. The Tahini Table has over 100 recipes from these sauces and dips, breakfast, salad dressings, mains, and also desserts, things like brownies. But one of my favorite desserts, and like Adrienne said, something that's perfect for Hanukkah. It's just a very plain cookie. It's a tahini sugar cookie, but you can also decorate it. So I have a 2-year-old. My sisters each have 5, 3, 1. I mean, we're kind of growing in the next generation, and we love finding baking activities to do with the kids. And these cookies have really been a hit because you can always put some, you know, frosting on top or decorate them however you like. So let's get this going. It starts with 6 tablespoons of butter. So even though tahini is a delicious and healthy ingredient, I'm never afraid of a little bit of butter. Butter is probably my second favorite fat to tahini. We're going to combine the butter, a half a cup of regular sugar, granulated sugar, and a half a cup of a light brown sugar into a bowl. Perfect. In here, we're also going to be putting in a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a half a cup of tahini. So this cookie really reminds people of a more probably familiar shortbread cookie. There are several recipe books like Zahav and even Sababa that incorporate tahini into a shortbread cookie, but it's almost a combination with a peanut butter cookie. So it has the perfect kind of chewy middle, hard outside, exactly what I like in a cookie. And we were really excited when we developed this just as a perfect plain cookie, sugar cookie to incorporate into the cookbook. So these all come together, and another thing, right? I'm not looking for extra equipment to have in my kitchen. And so we're just going to combine this with a wooden spoon. You can really combine it with whatever you think is convenient to have at home. It's best, obviously, if the butter is at room temperature. So I took mine out a couple hours ago to let it get to temperature. And we're just going to combine this all together. Now, if you have a stand mixer, feel free to use it. Mom, hate to admit it, not asking you to get one for me because I don't have room, but I don't even have one. And all the baked goods in here, you can easily do without it. Actually, I do baked goods without a stand mixer all the time. So when we started Soom Foods, what we found when we were doing our market research in the States was that A, most people had no idea what tahini was. B, if they knew what it was, they only really used it to make hummus. And also the place that you found it in the grocery store was on the bottom shelf of the international aisle, usually with dust on the lids. So we've really set out to make tahini a more popular ingredient in the American market by A, making it more consistent with the likes of other nut and seed butters available on the market. So we worked really hard to get tahini out of the international aisle and into the nut butter section. For those of you in markets where Soom can be found in stores, which is still not a lot of markets, it's primarily between DC and New York. You can find tahini usually, unfortunately, on the bottom shelf of the peanut butter section, but in the peanut butter section nonetheless. Another way that we got people to start thinking about tahini as a peanut butter, as a nut butter, as opposed to just an international condiment, is by creating one of our favorite products, which is our chocolate sweet tahini. So this is just tahini with powdered sugar and cocoa powder. It has no nuts, no dairy, no palm oil in there, so it's hard, and less than half the amount of sugar of Nutella. For those of you that like halva or even don't like halva, it really is just the perfect combination of chocolate and tahini, and is such a treat to eat either on a banana for breakfast, even slathered on these cookies is so good, and it's really, really delicious. So that was one of the ways that we were able to, get the American market to think about tahini in a new way outside of just thinking about it for hummus. So while that's nice and incorporated, we're now going to mix together 1 1/4 cups of flour with just a half a teaspoon of baking soda. We'll get those incorporated. Perfect. And we'll let that sit. Now the last bit of liquid that we're going to add to the mixture here is vanilla. Perfect. And 1 large egg. I don't know if it's right, but I always think that adding an egg into a baked good makes it more healthy. I mean, I know it's important for the consistency of it, but eggs have protein too, so there's not that much bad about this recipe, if I do say so myself. Perfect. So we'll get these incorporated, and then we're going to slowly incorporate the flour with the baking soda right into this mixture. The oven, by the way, is set to 350 degrees, a very typical, obviously, setting for baked goods. You can see this has really come together, no different than probably many sugar, wet ingredient mixtures that you've seen in the past. So another thing that we wanted to do in order to make the American market more familiar to Israeli ingredients was to bring over an ingredient that you might find is synonymous with tahini in Israel and other parts of the Middle East, which is Ceylon, a date syrup. This is an amazing substitute for honey, agave, or maple syrup, and you can use it in baked goods as well, although it's not in this recipe, in salad dressings, marinades, even sauces like a stir-fry sauce, and it's delicious. So in Israel, tahini and Ceylon is kind of like the peanut butter and jelly of the United States. And it's been really challenging, but really fun to make these Israeli ingredients more familiar, more accepted, and more beloved in the States. And a lot of that success has come from some of our relationships with great chefs across the country. That's my dog, Tazzy. And he's only barking because my husband is home. And makes no sense that he's barking at all, but such is life. Perfect. So we'll incorporate the flour and the baking soda into this mixture. I like to do just a little bit at a time so that it can get well incorporated. Don't be intimidated if it seems to be taking a little while. It always blends together, so no problem there. Awesome. So for those of you that are in markets where you cannot find tahini or our tahini in stores, you can always look for premium tahini. That's how we refer to it in the Tahini Table. That's made from Ethiopian sesame seeds. It's less hard to find, and we still see that most tahini purveyors don't share where their seeds are from, or it's likely a blend of seeds. Or Soom is available on Amazon and on our website, soomfoods.com. So if you're inspired to start cooking with more tahini, or maybe have been wanting to make hummus at home, or even these sugar cookies, highly recommend checking it out, because as you get more familiar with tahini, you'll find that you can really put it in almost anything. So that's the end of the flour mixture. And we'll mix it all together. So like I said, I have the oven set to 350 degrees. I also have a lined baking pan behind me. And what we're going to do is we're going to take 1 tablespoon scoops of this cookie and lay it out on the baking sheet. I really like to, actually I learned this, I'm not much of a baker. My mom, we didn't do much baking at home growing up either. But I find that using a tablespoon measure or whatever measure in general to make cookies is great, because it makes, once the size of the cookies are more consistent, they bake more evenly in the oven. And what I also love about these cookies is they don't take a long time to bake. They're just 10 minutes, and you'll find that they have a perfect chewy inside, a nice crispy outside, and obviously just a delicious, delicious flavor. Right, so these are all done. I'll bring over my baking sheet. I'm curious, I don't know, Adrian, if any questions are coming in while I've been cooking, but sometimes while I'm scooping, it's a good time to answer if any questions about tahini or about the recipes in general have come up. Let's see if she jumps in.
Actually, questions are coming up. You should see, Amy, the chat function has gone crazy. I think Judy is like busy sending everybody the recipe. Somebody asked, how long does that tahini sauce stay in the refrigerator before it goes bad?
Great. Yeah, so once you mix tahini with water, that is what makes it perishable. But this will last in your fridge for about a week as long as it's well covered. So tahini, once it's not mixed with water, just in its normal state, you can keep it in your fridge if you like, but I actually keep it in my refrigerator. So that's where it's shelf stable. But to that point, about a week on the tahini sauce. But okay. I don't think it will last that long.
Okay, so the next, not in my house, it wouldn't. One night, when you open the tahini, you don't have to keep it in the fridge. You can leave it in the cupboard, even open the way you would peanut butter.
Exactly, just the way that you would peanut butter or almond butter. So some people like to keep tahini in the fridge. What it does is it kind of suspends the oil. So it stops the oil from separating as much as it would in the pantry, but it doesn't make it as pourable or as easy to mix. So I like to keep it in the pantry. I think my sister keeps it in the fridge, but everybody that I know in Israel keeps it in the pantry. So that's where I learned that trick.
Uh-huh. And in terms of the chocolate one, how would one make it oneself? What would you do?
Take tahini, some powdered sugar, and your favorite cocoa powder and mix it together. I can't give away our secret ratios, obviously. But another thing that you can do is put tahini into your favorite brownie recipe. That's a great way to incorporate chocolate with tahini flavor in one of my favorite ways. But yeah, it's just 3 ingredients: tahini, powdered sugar, and cocoa powder.
Interesting. Now, is the recipe in your book for all of this stuff that you've been showing us today?
Yep, so every recipe that I'm showing you today is in the Tahini Table. The Tahini Table actually has 6 chapters, 5 of them filled with recipes. The first one, sauces, like this herb tahini sauce. It all starts with that mother sauce of just a traditional lemon tahini sauce. And then in that lemon tahini sauce, you can either sub some of the citrus for other citrus, like we do here with lime, or start adding in additional spices instead of just cumin. So another one of my favorite recipes from the cookbook is a turmeric tahini sauce. Well, you'll be incorporating a couple additional spices, including, of course, about a tablespoon of turmeric, and that is a delicious sauce. It's actually one of the most popular recipes out of the cookbook right now. That's a marinade for a chicken dish. So it's actually called Mom's Chicken. My mom and I developed that recipe a few years ago when we first started experimenting with tahini when we started Soom. Right. And you're roasting chicken with chickpeas and red onions, and it's just absolutely delicious. So that turmeric tahini sauce is another one in the sauce section.
So you're saying that you can put tahini sauce or tahini as a marinade for chicken as well?
Yep, exactly. It actually makes the skin of the chicken, it stays pretty thick, and it makes a really nice crunchy skin. The turmeric tahini sauce in general smells delicious while it's cooking. It reminds me of almost butter chicken from an Indian restaurant. It's so good.
I'm so starving right now. I bet everybody on here is starving too. Are you guys all starving? I'm starving. Amy, what about, gosh, I've been having one of those brain cramps for a minute. Oh yeah. Somebody said that they were allergic to garlic. Can you make a tahini sauce without garlic?
You can make a tahini sauce without garlic, absolutely. I would probably beef up the salt a little bit. Or use maybe an onion in there and an onion herb in there. That could be really nice. But you can absolutely make anything without garlic. It's definitely a more popular complement to tahini, but actually, if you try it, I'd love to hear some suggestions of what you come up with to use as opposed to garlic. Okay. If you're allergic to garlic, you might also be allergic to onion though. So we might have to circle back on that. I actually listened to a really interesting podcast. It was on the Milk Street podcast with Chris Kimball. And they had a caller call in that was allergic to garlic and onion and was having a lot of trouble building that kind of, those flavor profiles in their cooking.
Right.
And admittedly, I can't remember what the solution was, but it was there. So maybe if you Google Milk Street and some allergies to garlic and onions, you might find some options.
Oh, that's terrific. Okay, a couple more questions. Is it okay? A couple more?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so somebody said when you're using the tahini sauce that you made for fish or veggies, do you put it on and bake with it, or do you drizzle it afterwards?
So I usually for fish and veggies drizzle it on afterwards. The tahini sauce, when you cook it, it gets super thick. And actually a great trick that I learned in Israel that's pretty popular across cooking techniques in general is actually put the tahini sauce on your plate first and then put your fish or your vegetables on top of the tahini sauce. It prevents those from getting soggy from the sauce, and also lets the person serving themselves or yourself, of course, control how much tahini goes onto it. So there are some recipes where we bake it right on, but for something more delicate like a fish, I would suggest putting it on afterwards.
Okay, now somebody also asks, I heard you can use tahini for egg substitute in matzo balls. Is that true?
Yes, tahini is similar to like almost a flax egg. The consistency of the tahini is a great substitute for eggs. So you can use it in matzo ball. Never tried it, but we use it a lot in a pancake mix. We actually have a recipe for tahini pancakes in here. So you can use tahini as a substitute for eggs.
Oh, and tahini pancakes with Ceylon instead of, now what's the difference between date honey and date syrup?
So the date molasses that Soom purveys is a unique process where what they do is at first they dehydrate the date and they take all of the juice out of it, and it is really runny. It's probably more similar to a date syrup or a date honey that you've seen on the market before.
Okay.
But then that date juice is dehydrated again and turned into a thicker substance. So maybe it's been marketed as date honey. It could honestly be the same thing depending on who the manufacturer or who's making it in Israel. But a date syrup we just found as a more, familiar call or like a characteristic, especially as we wanted to relay the fact that it was vegan, which was really important for our customers. But it might be the same thing, but our date syrup or our Ceylon you'll find is thicker than other date syrups available on the shelves in the States.
I put date syrup right on my chicken instead of that yucky duck sauce. Tell me about tahini milkshakes so I can really cry right now.
Okay, well, we have 2 recipes for tahini milkshakes in here, but really you don't need a recipe to do it. All you need is something dairy-ish. So if you like almond milk, if you like regular milk, honestly, I've done it with ice cream before. You're gonna take tahini, some ice. My favorite complement, of course, is banana, but there are flavor profiles like in our cookbook where we put in some Turkish coffee. But tahini milkshakes are a beautiful way, especially if you're using those non-dairy options like almond milk or even a soy ice cream, where you can get something that's creamy like a smoothie, but doesn't have the dairy in it and also has all the health benefits of tahini. So it kind of tastes like a peanut butter, it depends what you put in it, peanut butter banana, peanut butter chocolate. It's really one of my favorite treats. I can whip some up at any time of day. It's one of my most satisfying flavor profiles. My favorite recipe, it's actually not one that we put in the cookbook because it was just too easy and we all thought it was silly, is your favorite, creamer or non-dairy creamer, tahini, Ceylon, and banana with ice, and that's all you need, and it's absolutely delicious.
Okay, I can't handle this. Is this boost almost over? I have to go make something.
Cooking demo.
Starving. You are amazing. One last question before we have to go. How much tahini to replace an egg, do you think?
1 tablespoon.
1 tablespoon of tahini replaces an egg.
Yeah, let me double check that, but about a tablespoon, maybe 2, but that should really do it.
What are you eating? Just tell me. I just want to know.
Oh, the cookie. It's so delicious and I really couldn't help myself. But it's just the most delicious flavor. I describe it in the book as plain, but I think that that's the perfect way to describe it. It has a subtle nuttiness, which isn't nuts, right? It's tahini. It's got a really delicate sweetness, and it's just perfect. I don't know if you can see, but it just makes this delicious crackle right on top, really similar to a peanut butter cookie.
Oh, man.
You can't imagine, they're so good. I either spread the chocolate soom on it. Like I said, you can decorate it. Sometimes I put ice cream in between and make little ice cream sandwiches. It's really, really one of my go-to recipes from the cookbook.
Okay, last question, which is a two-parter. First of all, can you talk about the protein compared to an egg? A, and B, how long do you cook the cookies for?
So you cook the cookies for 10 minutes at 350, just double checking. I've got a few minutes left on there. And you can do it two racks at a time. I don't like to, and I have time to keep cooking afterwards. Just make sure you switch the racks in the middle and they're both as close to the middle of the oven as possible. And 2 tablespoons of tahini has over 7 grams of protein. So it's very comparable to an egg. It's more protein than in a glass of milk. What we also love is that application or the vibrance of calcium and iron in there as well. So while, yes, we can compare it to eggs just for the protein itself, the additional nutrients, vitamins and minerals in tahini makes it a really great alternative either to eggs or also, of course, to mayonnaise or to say like a ranch dressing that you might be putting on. These tahini dressings that we have in here are as creamy and as satisfying as those types of dressings, but with all the health benefits of the sesame seeds.
Amy, you are a superstar. You cannot imagine how many people are already saying, I just bought the book, I just ordered the book, I just ordered the book. So I want to thank you so much for sharing these delicious and unexpected recipes for us. And you really are amazing. It's been so much fun. And I hope that you can join us again in the future, okay?
Can't wait. I really appreciate you having me. Shabbat shalom. And I hope your meals tonight or throughout the weekend are delicious and filled with tahini.
Oh, you're such a superstar. Thank you. And everybody out there, if you love this boost with Amy Zitelman as much as I did, you'll have to check out our virtual auction, which is connected to ActionCon, the conference that I already told you about, because you can bid on a cooking class with Amy. Plus you get tahini and her cookbook. It's connected. So don't forget about the conference. And oh boy, would I like to bid on a time to spend just with her, because I just want that cookie so badly. And listen, while you're there and exploring the options in all of the auction, just look, there's other incredible experiences and there's fabulous items, all while making a difference for Jewish families across the world. So we're going to be taking a break for a few weeks, but we'll be back soon with Momentum Boost season 3 already. But for me, Adrienne Gould Davis, and all of us at Momentum, please remember that as we learn and grow and feast together, Shabbat is the time to truly be a human being, not just a human doing. Shabbat shalom. See you on Sunday at the conference.